Hi, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Freddie and I usually talk about books in my channel, except for the last few videos in which I showed some random, footage of me traveling around some locations in Taiwan. I am still in Taiwan right now, but this is going to be my last week here. And today is hot. Today is hot. I was actually from outside and now I'm inside my dorm room because I wanted to charge my phone for a while, and while waiting for my phone to charge, I thought let's just make a bookish video because I just finished 2 books. Yeah. But while talking about books, I might be fanning myself because it is hot. It is hot. And this video is gonna be kind of special for a few reasons. First reason is because all of the books, I'll be talking about 2 books. 2 books I'll be talking about in this video are non-fiction, which, as you may know, is something that I don't read as much as fiction, but you are observing in real time pivotal moment of my reading life. Yeah. Okay. It maybe not that dramatic, but A for effort for me. Yeah. Another reason why it is special, this video, is because something that I will let you know at the end of this video. So I'm not going to tell you now. Don't skip to the end. I mean, you can skip, it's fine. Like, I allow you to do that because I don't believe in controlling your actions. I believe in freedom. Kind of different from what is in the book. Very nice segue, right? So yeah, let's talk about the first one. This is The Emperor by Ryszard Kapuściński, translated from Polish to English by William R. Brand and Katarzyna Mroczkowska-Brand. And this book is a non-fiction. It's a journalistic account of the reign of Haile Selassie, who was the emperor of Ethiopia from 1930 all the way until the year he was overthrown in 1974. And this book is divided into 3 parts. So the first part kind of briefly describes how his reign was like when things were just kind of like, the peak of his reign, so to speak, and how things were, what was his ruling style. And the second part of this book pretty much details the events that were happening when resistance movements were starting to grow. And the third part of this book, the last part, is about the collapse of his reign. So this person, this emperor, was known as a autocratic ruler, and so he has certain eccentricities in how he rules the country. And we would see a lot of the examples on how he ruled the country, like the kind of personality that he has, through the testimonials and the accounts given by the people who worked very closely with him. And these people were interviewed by Kapuściński, and it is their testimonials that are kind of being compiled in this book. So most of the things that we would read in this book are basically a collection of what these people say, what they thought about Haile Selassie, what they thought about his government, what they thought about the country at that time. Basically their thoughts and opinions. And these accounts were sort of compiled in a sort of chronological fashion so that it kind of fits with the themes of the first, the second, and the third part. In between, there are also accounts of Kapuściński himself, like written in italics, what he thought about his own experience while he was in the country, like while he was communicating with these individuals, and what he observed at the time also. So I would say this is an interesting book. When I first started reading The Emperor, I actually kind of enjoyed it. I would even say, like, I thought of giving it 4 out of 5 stars at the time, because I did enjoy it quite a lot. And in fact, I read quite fast because I did really enjoy it. I think in one sitting I read like 50 pages. So that was quite fast. But at some point in the middle, I started to feel my interest in this book just kind of fizzled out. That there were certain aspects of this book that just didn't really work for me. And because of that, my interest and opinions about this book just kind of dropped a little bit, little by little. Until at the end, I decided to just kind of give this book like, 2.5 out of 5 stars. So, yeah, and why was that? Now, the reason why it was interesting is because it's just kind of interesting to read about the accounts of the people that Ryszard Kapuściński interviewed. Like, we hear from multiple perspectives of people who work closely with the emperor, people who came from different ranks in his government, and they were all talking about like how he was like this, he was like that. The rule was like this and that. The country was this and that. It was just interesting because you kind of felt that kind of intimacy, that closeness with the people. You could feel like, you could feel like you are at the same level as them, and you could feel their story and all that. Now, but I noticed something as I read more and more. Something started to show up, and that is certain things became kind of repeated. One of the things that would eventually get repeated a lot in this book is descriptions on how this emperor was kind of was eccentric. Like his eccentricities became like a place on the spotlight, and it became really obvious that because it kept on being mentioned, like you got a lot of examples on how this ruler had certain flavors of personality which made him interesting. But there's something suspicious about how this aspect of this emperor kept on being repeated, that you can't help but feel like this book really wants to paint this emperor in a certain way. Now, this is not to say that this person, this emperor, is like a totally good person or a totally bad person, but you can begin to feel that this book has a certain bias that is difficult to ignore. And for me, that doesn't really work, because I felt like this book did not really give me a room to breathe and form my own opinion on, about the person in question that the book is focusing on. Like, the book feels like it is trying to tell me in a sort of sensationalizing way, in a gossipy way, that it's like it's telling me, that emperor is like that, like this, like that, like this. And as a reader, I just felt like someone was just gossiping with me. And I felt like the person who is gossiping with me is trying to influence what I think about the emperor. And it kind of gets, it kind of got boring over time, because that tone became really consistent. So that was one of the things that I didn't particularly enjoy about this book. Now, another thing is that I started to notice that the voice of the different people that were being interviewed in this book, they started to sound very similar to each other. Now, this is not to, this is not to say that the testimonials are fake or whatever, are made up. I feel probably it has something to do with, the fact that this book was written in a different language, and the version I'm reading right now is in a different language. And I'm pretty sure when Kapuściński interviewed these people, they were speaking in a different language. So there are probably a lot of translations going on, layers of translations up to the version I'm reading right now. So probably that's why, these people kind of end up sounding samey with each other. But, despite, I would say despite being aware that there may be something being lost in translation, it's kind of difficult to deny the effects of these, these testimonials sounding the same. Because when they sound the same, you start to kind of lose a certain, lose this ability to suspend disbelief. Especially when the eccentricities of the emperor is being described, and on top of that, how certain, from my point of view, the mental gymnastics that some of these individuals in describing the emperor, in sort of enabling the actions of this emperor, how those would sound kind of absurd to me. And because of that, it's kind of difficult to suspend disbelief when you read about these things. You start to feel like everything just felt really outlandish, and you start to wonder, right, if there was certain stylistic choice in writing was intentional or not, right? One of the stronger aspects of this book is, of course, the how it leans on narrative, right? How it leans on storytelling. I always feel like nonfiction that leans on storytelling are usually the more interesting ones for me. I think every book, everything's written has some kind of narrative. And some of them are kind of subtle. You just have to really look closely to, to identify the narrative. But I feel like this one, you don't have to look too closely to identify the story, right? But I feel like the narrative aspect of this book, the storytelling aspect of this book, felt a little bit too overpowering. It felt like I was reading a novel. In fact, while describing this book, sometimes I would end up slipping up and say, oh, I read this novel. But then I realized, oh, it wasn't a novel. But it felt like a novel. It felt like you're reading a story. Because of, I would say, some of the writing choice, some of the choice in terms of tone, in terms of voice, in terms of how Haile Selassie is described in this book, is painted for us in this book. And those would, I was just not really crazy about seeing this character and how he's so much of this, so much of that. And I wonder if I, as a reader, is kind of being manipulated into thinking, oh yeah, it is like this, into agreeing with the point of view of this book. So, those are my thoughts about The Emperor. What do you think about it? Have you read this book? Let me know. Now the second one is this one. It's called Totto-Chan, The Little Girl at the Window. This is written by Tetsuko Kuroyanagi, translated from Japanese to English by Dorothy Britton. I think this book is kind of famous. I've heard of it before, but I was a little bit suspicious about it because I've heard about how this book felt kind of cutesy and all that. And yeah, I tend to be kind of suspicious about cutesy books. And reading this book, there were some cutesy element in it. But I would say I did appreciate this book, that at the end I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. So what is this book about? This is a memoir written about a girl named Totto-Chan. And very shortly, we would learn that Totto-Chan is actually the author herself, Tetsuko. And basically this book describes Totto-Chan's experience in a particularly unconventional school. She, as a little girl, was expelled from one school before she ended up enrolling in this particular school called Tomoe Gakuen. And we learn that Totto-Chan is a child who is kind of she is precocious, and she is very much a child that is that expresses herself very strongly, to the extent that the teachers in the previous school thought that she was disruptive. And so her mom enrolled her in this new school. And it was a good decision because in this school, Totto-Chan was able to express herself freely, and she had a teacher that allowed her to sort of develop her freedom of self-expression. And she was able to feel very comfortable being who she is in this school without being stifled by rules, by the conventional way of how education was passed to children. And she ended up making many friends here, and we also get glimpses of Totto-Chan's voice as an adult, describing how she was impressed by the way this teacher sort of educated her in this school. So much of this book is written through the perspective of a little child. And so you can get the sense of the vibes of innocence, of optimism in this book, which really fits with the subject of this book, because it is about a little girl after all. You also would read about the antics of Totto-Chan. Some of the things that she would end up doing would feel kind of absurd, but I think that's kind of like part of what this book is trying to show. Like Totto-Chan herself, was an unconventional girl who would be seen as disruptive in a more conventional school environment, but at this particular school, she was able to flourish. And through the description of how unconventional this school was, this book was able to kind of like make a statement on how, in general, the education system in Japan at that time, which was before World War II, sort of had this quality of being rigid and non-flexible, and didn't really have the space in order for some children who were a little bit unconventional to flourish. And basically this book showed an example of a school that was able to help Totto-Chan to grow as a person, you know, as a little girl. Now, one thing that I usually feel bored reading is that, are books that are just kind of like very happy and pastel and feeling a little bit detached from the real world, with how cutesy and how optimistic things are. This book is slightly different. While much of the things that we're seeing are in fact kind of innocent, right? There were certain aspects that kind of looms in the background. There are some foreshadowing of the impact that war would eventually have on society being told through kind of like, I would say, the interstitial space in this book. Because this memoir is about events that occurred before World War II in Japan. We would kind of see slowly how things just kind of progress, right, over time. How war started to make itself appear, which is, to me, it's kind of interesting because much of this book is about little kids in a school enjoying themselves, learning, and then in the background you have these adults making stupid stuff. And the impact of war is slowly being kind of like described in trickled right into this memoir. And as you read this memoir all the way until the end, you start to feel like you're gaining more and more of that kind of sinister aspect of reality, which I think is kind of interesting. Visually, I would probably kind of like describe how the beginning of this book just felt kind of colorful and pastel, and then eventually you'll get a bit of darkness, a bit of gray, a bit of, drabness getting into this book. So I thought that transition was interesting. Yeah, overall I thought it was an interesting book. 3 out of 5 stars for me. Let me know if you have read this one and what you think about it. So those are the 2 books I want to talk about in this video. On the second reason why this video is special, I mean, whether you will decide it's special or not, that's, up to you. Again, I believe in freedom. But today is my birthday. So, yeah, that's all. Let me know how your day has been. Is it really hot where you live? Because it's hot right now. And I'm just kind of wearing this chic outfit because inside I'm sweating. So, I think my phone has charged to a sufficient level of power, and I think I'm gonna stop this video now. I'll see you again in the new one, so until then, take care. Thanks for watching. Bye.